The moment he enters the room, nothing obvious happens. No grand entrance, no perfect jawline, no expensive watch catching the light. And yet somehow, people notice him, especially women. Not because he is trying to be noticed, but because he isn't. This is the paradox most men never understand. They believe attraction is something projected outward, a performance, a carefully crafted image, a collection of techniques designed to create a certain impression. Yet the men who create the strongest impressions often seem to do the least. They are not scanning the room for approval. They are not measuring their worth through the reactions of others. They are not silently asking for permission to exist. And because of that, something unusual happens. People feel them before they understand them. Women sense it almost instantly, not as a conscious checklist, not through logic, but through a feeling, a signal, a silent message hidden beneath words, posture, appearance, and behavior. The strange thing is that most men spend years chasing confidence without realizing that what women often sense instantly is not confidence itself. It is freedom. Freedom from the desperate need for validation. Human beings evolved with an extraordinary ability to read one another long before language became sophisticated. The conscious mind may analyze, but the unconscious mind detects. It notices hesitation, neediness, insecurity, hidden motives, and emotional dependence. This creates a problem for modern men because modern culture teaches appearance while human nature responds to reality. Social media teaches image. Advertising teaches image. Dating advice often teaches image. But the nervous system asks a different question entirely. Who are you beneath the performance? Most men never answer this question because they spend years constructing identities instead. Successful man, confident man, high-status man, mysterious man, disciplined man. Yet maintaining an identity requires constant effort. Every interaction becomes an evaluation. Every woman becomes a judge. Every rejection becomes a threat. And beneath all of it, neediness begins to emerge. Not always visibly, but invisibly does not mean undetectably. The need for approval changes the way a man speaks, listens, moves, reacts, and carries himself. Two men can say the exact same words, yet one feels grounded while the other feels anxious. One feels complete while the other feels hungry. One feels calm while the other feels as though he is secretly asking for something. Women often describe this difference with vague words like presence, confidence, energy, or charisma. But those words point towards something deeper. Presence is what remains when psychological dependence disappears. The ancient Stoics understood a version of this idea. Freedom was never about controlling the world. Freedom was about no longer needing the world to behave a certain way in order to feel whole. A person enslaved by outcomes becomes fragile. A person liberated from outcomes becomes powerful, not because he controls more, but because less controls him. Imagine what happens when this principle enters human relationships. A man who needs validation unconsciously communicates dependence. A man who appreciates validation but does not require it communicates abundance. The difference is enormous. One is psychologically chasing, while the other is psychologically standing still. Human beings are incredibly sensitive to this distinction. Throughout history, many traditions emphasized self-mastery before influence. Greek philosophers spoke of governing oneself before attempting to influence others. Roman thinkers admired internal discipline above external success. Monastic traditions explored detachment from compulsive desires. Samurai philosophy often reflected on fearlessness through acceptance rather than control. Different cultures arrived at similar conclusions. The strongest individual was not the most aggressive. He was the least enslaved. This is where many men become confused because they mistake self-mastery for emotional suppression. They believe becoming attractive means becoming cold, detached, or indifferent. But suppression is not mastery. Avoidance is not strength. Women sense avoidance just as quickly as they sense neediness. A man who suppresses emotion is still controlled by emotion. He simply hides the evidence. Real self-mastery allows fear, desire, insecurity, and emotion to exist without surrendering authority to them. The man remains larger than the impulses moving through him. This creates psychological stability, not physical strength, but gravity. Imagine standing beside two buildings during a storm. One shakes violently with every gust of wind, while the other barely moves. Which one feels safer? Which one inspires trust? Human beings operate in much the same way. Stability creates safety, not softness, but predictability, integrity, consistency. A man who knows himself becomes easier to trust because his words align with his actions and his actions align with his values. He remains the same person regardless of who enters the room. This kind of coherence is rare. Most people are fragmented. One personality for work, another for friends, another for social media, another for dating. Yet the human psyche longs for wholeness. Women often sense this before they consciously understand it. The unconscious mind constantly compares signals, searching for alignment and looking for contradictions. Authenticity feels effortless because it requires no acting. Many men spend years trying to appear confident, while very few spend years becoming impossible to shake. Confidence often depends on circumstances. Self-mastery survives them. Confidence may disappear after rejection. Self-mastery absorbs rejection without collapse. Confidence seeks evidence. Self-mastery becomes evidence. This is why some men become more attractive as they age. Not necessarily because they become more handsome, but because they become more integrated, more comfortable with themselves, more free from the exhausting need to prove. Proof-seeking is perhaps the greatest trap of all, because a man who constantly needs proof can never relax. Every achievement becomes temporary. Every success becomes insufficient. Every victory demands another victory. He spends his life presenting evidence of his worth. Women sense this struggle because internal battles eventually become external behaviors. Then comes the stage many men fear most: solitude. Sometimes it arrives through heartbreak, failure, rejection, loneliness, or loss. The audience disappears. Validation becomes scarce. The masks stop working. For the first time, a man confronts himself without distractions. It is uncomfortable because identity begins dissolving. Yet hidden within that discomfort is transformation. He starts discovering who he is without applause, admiration, attention, or recognition. Real power often begins at this exact moment, not when others believe in him, but when he no longer requires them to. He becomes less reactive, less fragile, less desperate, and more intentional. His energy changes, not dramatically, but subtly, and subtle changes often produce the deepest effects. Attraction is rarely created through grand gestures. It emerges through invisible signals accumulated over time. Calmness during uncertainty, composure during pressure, the willingness to walk away from what violates personal values, the refusal to betray oneself for temporary approval. These qualities communicate something profound. This person possesses an internal center. Human beings are naturally drawn towards centers of gravity, especially in an age overflowing with distraction. Attention spans are collapsing. Dopamine floods every corner of life. Most people live in a constant state of fragmentation. Their minds pulled in a gracie balloonist trap. Their minds pulled in 1,000 directions at once. In such an environment, genuine presence becomes rare, and rarity creates value. A man capable of sustained focus feels different. A man capable of sitting alone without stimulation feels different. A man capable of delaying gratification feels different. Discipline reveals itself in every aspect of behavior. The way a person speaks, moves, thinks, decides. Discipline is not merely a habit. It is a signal that says, this person can govern himself. And if he can govern himself, perhaps he can govern other areas of life as well, which leads to the revelation most men spend years searching for. Women do not instantly sense status, confidence, or charm in the way people imagine. Those things matter, but they are often side effects. The deeper signal is internal order, the degree to which a man has organized his thoughts, emotions, desires, fears, attention, values, and purpose. Internal order creates external coherence, and coherence is magnetic. A river becomes powerful because it flows in one direction. Scattered water becomes a swamp. Focused water carves through stone. Human energy behaves the same way. A man without purpose leaks energy everywhere. A man with purpose concentrates it. Purpose aligns behavior, reduces internal conflict, creates momentum. Women sense this because direction changes everything. The way a man walks, speaks, acts, decides, lives. And perhaps that is the deepest secret hidden beneath all the others. The men who leave the strongest impressions are rarely trying to leave impressions at all. The men who seem powerful are rarely trying to appear powerful. The men who possess presence are rarely thinking about presence. Their attention is focused elsewhere, on purpose, on growth, on mastery, on living according to values greater than immediate validation. They have stopped orbiting the opinions of others, and because of that, they become centers of gravity themselves. Women sense this instantly, not because attraction is mysterious, but because human beings have always recognized the difference between someone seeking completion and someone creating it within himself. One radiates need, the other radiates direction, and direction will always be more compelling. So the real question is not whether women sense certain men instantly. The real question is this: if nobody watched, nobody admired, nobody applauded, nobody validated, and nobody cared, who would you become? Because the answer may reveal the very thing people have been sensing about you all along.